So, I was taking my dog Minnie for a walk when this happened. Now, I live in a suburban area, about 30 minutes away from Philly. I wouldn't say where I live was dangerous, but I would still be cautious here. Okay, so I was walking my dog down the street. The sun was going down and I just wanted to go out and smoke a cigarette. There was an abandoned elementary school down the street from my house, and I like to walk Minnie around the school. But when I got there, I noticed a red truck parked with the windows rolled down and a man sitting inside. Now, I had this feeling in the pit of my stomach that something just didn't feel right. But I brushed it off because I always felt paranoid. I finished my cigarette and turned to go back the other way to the front, towards the truck. When I got closer, I noticed that the engine was turned on, and the man had stuck his head out and looked from me to the dog before talking to me.
"Cute dog,"
he commented. Thanks," I said.
"Hey, do you want to ride?"
No thanks." I felt that uneasy feeling again, and I was feeling nervous.
"Do you live around here?"
he asked me. No," I lied. There was no way in hell I was going to tell this guy where I lived.
"Where do you live? I'll give you a ride."
Now, this man was about in his early to mid-40s. He was balding and had bags under his eyes. And long story short, he looked creepy as hell. I told him no thanks and started speed walking away. I heard the car behind me and I hated myself for not having my phone on me at that moment.
"Hey,"
he shouted, pulling up beside me, dangerously close to me, might I add.
"get in."
"No," I told him, growing a bit agitated. He did not look happy at this.
"Get in the fucking car, you bitch, or I'll kill your dog."
I felt fear in that very moment. I couldn't bear the thought of my dog dead. She was only a puppy and wasn't at all intimidating, but she was barking hysterically at the man, which she often did with people she didn't know anyway. I pulled on the leash, bringing Minnie closer to me. At this point, I was scared and pissed off, so I booked it across the parking lot. Looking behind me, I could see that he was following me. I had a little ways to my house, but I didn't want him to know where I lived, so I ran up the driveway of a house on my street. The truck drove down the street too, slowing down before speeding off down the street. I watched the truck go and I waited there a few minutes before running back home. If you're wondering, no, I didn't call the cops, nor did I knock on my neighbor's door. I probably should have, I know, but I didn't. I just hope that no one is ever in the situation that I was in. So, I used to live at a base called Bitburg. It's one of Germany's most haunted places, and I can attest to that. Originally a Luftwaffe base, during World War II, the base was split between the Americans and the French during and after the war. During the Cold War, it was a nuke base for Mace missiles, and after the Cold War, it was basically a support base. Nothing really important. In 2015, most of the base was closed down, and by 2017, the high school and the fire department were all that remained, until last summer, that is. The base itself has had numerous types of hauntings and weird incidences in three main parts of the base. I'd like to let you know that the base is divided into 4 parts. 1. Airfield, given back to the Germans after the Cold War. 2. Missile fields, which were shut down after the Cold War. 3. The main base. And 4. French caserne attached to the main base. Now, the 3 haunted areas were in Part 3 and 4. In the French caserne, it is rumoured to have been a makeshift prison for criminals and POWs. Not Jews. This wasn't a concentration camp. It is said, when you're alone walking through the parking lots of the former prison, that you can hear footsteps of people as if they were right behind you, lined up. Some have even seen shadows. The basements of the buildings in the French caserne were used to hold the prisoners, and oftentimes people get the feeling of being watched down there. Some doors were actually locked and blocked from the inside, with chairs and tables stacked against the door. In the main base, the middle school, my old school, it's the most haunted part of the base apparently. Windows shut and open by themselves there. You can see shadows pacing in the hallways, and supposedly you can hear people talking when no one is in there, along with weird noises. Rumour has it, my middle school was a tank maintenance shop. It being a Luftwaffe base, I'm just assuming that it was a regular mechanic shop for planes or vehicles. The other part of the base that's haunted is the housing. Now, the housing on the base isn't your typical 1 or 2 story house, like most military bases. No. This was some Chernobyl socialist-like building. People have seen shadows, heard noises, and get the feeling of being watched there. The base hasn't been entirely closed at this point. It has limited hours, 5 AM to 7 PM. Me being an avid and seasoned urban explorer already noted that security forces made their last rounds by 8:30 or 9 PM. Me and my buddy decided, hey, I used to live here. I love this base and you're a median, so let's do some stupid airman shit and sneak into the base. So, after our midnight meal of McDonald's, we locate an entrance and exit point behind the commissary. We get inside no problem. Let me tell you, Bitburg is nostalgic and serene during the day, and I love it. At night, it is the spookiest, heaviest air I've ever breathed and walked through. We make our way towards the base chapel, which is now sitting in overgrown weeds. I ask my buddy if he wants to do his median seance stuff, and he tells me, dude, I don't fuck with churches. Fair enough, I guess. We walk across the street towards the BX, all the while looking for security forces who might still be around. The base is completely dark, except for every other street lamp, and a random few lights on in the base housing. There were probably a total of 12 room lights on for the 30 or so buildings that made up the base housing. We are shrouded in darkness though, and as I make my way up to the BX, I see a white mist in front of me. Originally, I thought it was a glare from the streetlight, but as I see it, it darts towards my left and disappears. My immediate reaction was, oh shit, car lights, police. Me and my friend duck and look around, but there's no cars. Then he asks me what I saw. It wasn't until then that it dawned on me that I saw a white mist. We continue walking, obviously spooked, but determined to get this seance thing done. As we leave the BX, we begin to enter the base housing area. I check left and right, looking across the street to make sure there were no cars or people. My friend asks me if I feel that we're being watched, and I said no, do you? He nodded and looked up at the leering buildings that were looming over both of us. At this point, we were 3 buildings away from the middle school, the most haunted area of the base apparently. I noticed that my friend's getting anxious and constantly fiddling with his fingers. Hey, what's up, man? Are you alright? I ask, and he just looks at me and says, oh, man, I don't feel good about this. Like, it feels really ominous or something. At this point, we were inching closer and closer to the school, which was more lit than the rest of the base. We stop, and I tell him all the spooky stories about the school. As I'm explaining it to him, I hear what sounded like a pebble being thrown on brick-covered ground. I stop and look down the steps which lead between the old gym and the teen center. Down the steps was a dark, narrow walkway which led into a pitch-black courtyard. My buddy looks at me and confirmed that we both heard that noise. It was finally getting exciting. We continue talking, and he starts telling me about how to start the seance and what to do, and how we must hold hands, when I noticed what sounded like machinery and water running coming from the direction that we heard the pebble. It wasn't loud, but faint enough for us to just hear it. There is absolutely no way in hell that machinery is running in this building. At this point, it had been shut down for at least 5 years with no electricity, so there was just no way. I start towards the steps leading down into the narrow walkway. My friend tells me to stop when we both hear distinctive clinking coming from the darkness in the courtyard. There was absolutely no wind, and it sounded like metal on metal, or someone tapping a stick on a metal fence post or something. Again, not loud, but faint enough to hear it. Well, at this point, I'm ready to go. I look at my friend eagerly and say, let's go check it out. He nods no, completely freaked out at this point. So I say okay, fine. Let's get this seance thing going on. But my friend refuses and says that he no longer feels comfortable doing it. He said that he felt something dark and absolutely did not want to do the seance. He actually wanted to just leave now. I snap a quick pic of the location at the top of the stairs, looking down into the walkway which led into the dark abyss of the courtyard, which is where the noises were coming from. It wasn't until I got home about 2 days later that I noticed a blue orb on the walkway, just near the base of the steps. I showed my mum, who was stationed at Bitburg, and she blamed it on the reflection of light. I showed my buddy who went with me that night and confirmed my belief that it indeed was not there. Also, the orb is blue, and the lights in that photo were white. The handrail down the steps is nowhere in the picture, and there are no manholes in the walkway area either. The picture, for me, has no explanation to it. I've taken more pictures of the base both during my legal visit in the day and of my ghost hunting adventures at night, and I've never seen this again.